this video I'm going to have a look at the short answer questions that appear in paper 1. So expecting there to be about 20 marks worth of these questions. So we've only got the specimen material that AQA released before this new format AS was released, and the first set of papers was 2016, so it's not a massive sample size, but we've got the information that we've got is that there's going to be at least one calculation question, 4 to 5 marks, one calculate and advise question or something along those lines, calculate and interpret. You calculate a figure and explain what it means for the business, or you make some advice based on the figures that you calculate. And then to explain, analyse questions, and I'll have a look at each of those in this video. So the first one is just a very basic calculation question. When I say basic, there's quite a lot of information in there, but the examiner is going to be looking for the correct answer right there. They give you a space to write the correct answer and your workings below. If you want to really help out the examiner, if you've got the correct answer, you can just get 4 marks. You put the answer there, and the examiner will very much appreciate you saving them some time. The examiner is paid per question, and if you make it really easy for them to just see straight away you've got it right, give the student 4 marks. That's a really easy bit of money for the examiner, and they will very much appreciate you for it. However, the examiners are reasonable people, and if you've got the incorrect answer up there, they will look at your workings to try and give you some marks for your workings. Always write the formula and clearly show your workings, because the examiner might be able to pick up where you've gone wrong, and maybe you'll get up to 3 marks even if you've got the wrong final answer. Okay, so this question here is one of the calculate and advise type questions. So a business is deciding whether or not to increase its annual expenditure on TV advertising. Referring to figure 1, use calculations to advise the business on whether it or not it should increase its TV advertising expenditure, and it gives you a decision tree there. Now, decision trees have appeared in last year's, this is the 2016 paper, and the specimen paper, and they weren't on the last specification, so it seems like they are using these decision trees. Whether quite what that means for this year's exam, I don't know. But the point is, it says use calculations to advise. All right, so you've got to make some calculations. You've got to advise the business. Now, I'm not going to go into how to do this. I've got a video on decision trees, but this is the mark scheme. Now, if you run through the calculations that you should know how to do for decision trees, you'll realise that if they chose to advertise, the net gain would be 6.1 million compared to the expected value of doing nothing, which is 0. All right, so you get 3 marks for the calculation bit. You get your final mark for just a sentence saying doing nothing paid 0, so increasing its TV advertising is the better option. So there's your 4 marks there. Okay. So that is how I would go about answering those questions. Show your workings, and then, you know, it's not looking for a big long paragraph. It's not looking for, you know, they'll have to consider the quality of the advertising. There's no howevers in here. It's just use the calculation, making a bit of advice on the figure you calculate. Okay. So here's an example of an analysis or an explain type question. Explain, analyse, it's the same skill. This one's about Blake McTon, country club manager. Explain whether this style of management is likely to be suitable for a business that is looking to increase productivity, looking to increase output per worker. Okay. The key thing is that this is the context, all right? It's not a long case study or anything like that, but they've given you a context. They've said a business is trying to increase productivity. Will a country club manager be any good? Now, if you revise Blake Mouton, you know that the country club manager shows high concern for people but low concern for production, and you need to say whether or not that's going to be good for productivity. So, building a chain of argument, well, they'll be highly concerned for people. If people are well motivated, it's likely they may increase their output, and therefore perhaps the firm will become more productive. And building a strong argument based on that. I'll show you the level of detail that the argument is expected to go into, but build, analysis well developed, applied effectively. Okay, so here's another explain or analyse type question. Explain how debt factoring might benefit a retailer, so there's your context there, that offers long-term credit to its customers. Okay, so the context is the retailer offering long-term credit. Here's an example of a question that got a response that got 4 marks. Debt factoring is where a bank or other agency takes your trade receivables and pays you back a large amount of what they're worth. They will then want to receive money from the trade receivables and will pay you the final amount, keeping around 5% for themselves. This would benefit this business greatly, as they would otherwise have problems with cash flow. They would receive an instant cash injection from the debt factoring company, and this would allow them to run the business while still offering long-term credit. So we've got 4 marks. This red comment is from the Chief Examiner at AQA. This response demonstrates reasonable knowledge and understanding of the issues in the question and identifies a valid benefit to the retailer of debt factoring and some development, but does lack depth. So to improve, perhaps giving an example about, this would be particularly useful for a retailer in the run-up to Christmas, because at this time they're likely to need to purchase a lot of stock, and if they're waiting for money for clients, that might not be possible. So you could develop that response by that, and I would imagine that would take it up to the top band of probably 6 marks. Here's an example of a 6-mark answer. I won't read it in full. But the AQA said about it. Feel free to pause it to see what you need to sort of level the AQA marking at 6 marks. This response is best considered holistically. It demonstrates good knowledge and understanding throughout and develops a valid chain of reasoning that is clearly in the context of a retailer offering long-term credit to its customers. Some of the expression lacks clarity at time, but the focus on the question is very clear and consistent. Okay, so it's a little bit wordy when you read it, particularly down here, but it's a very good explanation, fully in context, and that's basically what AQA are looking for. The challenge is to do that in 6 minutes. As I say, I think it feels a bit wordy down here, and we could probably lose a little bit of that. But hopefully that gives you an idea of how to tackle these short answer questions. You'll notice that for 6 marks they did write 2 paragraphs. I think that just adding an example onto the end of this one, as I mentioned, would be enough to get the 6 marks.